Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on the mic with Mike. This is the Empower Hour. Tiffany Joy Greene is here with me. This is her baby. This is her idea. I'm just along for the ride, but I am here, present and accounted for, with homework in hand. I thought about not coming today. I did. I really contemplated that, but then
Well, the dog, my Rory, ate his homework apparently, and all her relatives.
Yes. But I thought about you as Joe Clark, the principal who used to walk around with a baseball bat. And I figured I might need to be in school today with my homework because I don't want that to happen to me. All right, folks, welcome back to this is the May version of the Empower Hour. Tiffany Greene and her squad is here. We're here talking business and all the tidbits. She's assembled her crew. And welcome back to the program, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm just typing away here. If you hear some typing, it's because I'm typing away to our Facebook friends.
Yes, we got some, and we want good Facebook friends. We don't want any rabble rousers like we aren't calling any names out there, putting people on the spot. This is
I call those people accountability partners, Mike. Those are accountability partners.
No, we don't want that. This is a judgment-free zone. We are not doing that in May. Alrighty, so folks, what we do here is we assemble the business leaders out there to answer all your business questions. We got them here. So we got Stacie Briley Goodman over top right. We got John Rabil bottom left. I feel like the one with the Hollywood squares. I feel like that. We got Kristen Siebert here and Brian Kinzie. All right, Tiffany Greene, tell us why we're here today. What are we doing?
We are here to solve the world's problems. No, we're not. That's a lie. We are here today to answer people's management, leadership, and business questions. We got our Empower People squad, and you just went through all the names. And we have our guests here to ask any of their questions that they may have, again, about business, management, or leadership. Empower People in general is an organization that provides education, connection, and support to mission and purpose-driven leaders to drive positive impact and empower people. So while we might not be able to save the entire world, we can help one person at a time, which in fact does what? Help the world. So
it helps the world. We're here. This is a purpose-driven organization. Tiffany Greene is the princess of purpose. We're out here talking. Yes, she is adjusting that crown right there. And what we do is we offer solutions. This program is about how business helps society be better. We got our rock stars out there. We're going to start with Stacie, tell us who you are, what you do, ma'am.
I am Stacie Goodman. I am the founder of Origamic Solutions and principal consultant. We are a small business advisory and operations consulting firm helping our clients navigate to operational excellence and level up with love.
There you go. John Rabil, counselor. How you doing out there this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Super.
Good. My turn.
Yes, sir. We're waiting.
I didn't know if you were just saying hello. Yep. I'm John Rabil. I own ELA, which is a law firm that works with small, mid-sized companies. So typically, what we do is help them recognize risks they may not be aware of, and because they're worried about that liability on the company, and then we act as strategic advisors as companies navigate through their business cycle, sort of like general counsel.
So, Counselor, one question here. It is popped up that organizations can find yourself in a pickle. And like I said, if I'm talking to you on Wednesday and I think I need a lawyer today, I needed one last week.
Yeah, a lot of small businesses, or most of the trouble I think small businesses get into, they could completely avoid. And they end up being reactive, which costs them more time and more money. So I think there's a better approach where you can be more proactive and avoid a lot of issues.
All righty, sir. I'm just a humble public servant. I'm just out here seeing things. You handle, and we talk about small business a lot of times running into problems. Then we see big organizations run into problems like a VCU, like college campuses, that all of a sudden they wake up one day and they're smack dab in the middle of a crisis. Explain what in-house counsel does so that when something bad happens, I don't need to run out and find help.
Yeah, so I think in-house counsel essentially does two things. one, or first and foremost, they are these days strategic advisors to the companies. So it's not about putting together a contract or reviewing a contract. I think their main purpose now is to be an advisor. Then they do the thing where, contracts, all whatever people think of as typical legal work. And then they're there as a resource when things start to come up. So you're not scrambling. I mean, you can't avoid all issues. I think that's probably impossible, but at least you know where to go, what the process is if something comes up. So that's in-house counsel. It's how large companies use lawyers. There's no reason small businesses can't access a similar type of service.
There you go, Kristen. Welcome to the program, ma'am. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Good morning. I am Kristen Seibert, Operations Director at Community Safety and Response Educators. We teach CPR and advanced life support certifications to our community as well as to our healthcare workers. And I'm delighted to be with you all this morning.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you. It's very important. I was just at the Heart Ball and that, we were out there, and it is important everyone needs to know and people need to know how to at least do the basic level of care so that something happens, everyone isn't standing around looking for the one person who knows. Yes, that
Yes.
does happen.
That is exactly what we offer.
Yes, we're looking for that one person to be there when something bad happens.
And hopefully we can train the community so that there are lots of people there. And there's not just one, because it takes, oftentimes it's going to take a lot of team to pull together an effort. So the more we can encourage our community and the more we can empower them to feel confident to come forward, the better we're going to do as a community in saving lives.
Really quickly, so this is on the mic, ESPN. We're here at the Mike Kingbit studio. Our friends are out there, all spread out among in the community. So, Kristen, when the process works, we saw that with Damar Hamlin. We saw that was a textbook example of when things work right. How often do things work right, ma'am, like that?
When you've got a community that's trained and comes forward, it works right a lot. There are many, many, many examples here in Virginia, in Richmond, and around the country where we have spouses who encounter their spouse with a heart attack, call 911 and initiate CPR immediately, and there's a favorable outcome to that. We've had pilots at the Richmond airport, a witnessed cardiac arrest, and the security team rushed forward, began CPR, applied an AED, and had a favorable outcome. And so those textbook cases are happening in our community every day. And the more that we can get our community trained, then the more stories there are and the more lives that are saved. So Damar Hamlin had a team and a plan. And what we want to do is help our community to have a plan in their household or have a plan in their neighborhood and make that plan community wide. So we all know how to react and we all know what to do and feel empowered to do it.
And
See,
Mike,
Tiffany Green, that's why you did this.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
That's what you put together just because the community needs that.
Yes, that's
people
right.
are purpose driven. We see something happening and you made this happen. And that's why Kristen is here, because a lot of people would think that the Damar Hamlin is so odd that it only worked because it was him on a football field in front of a bunch of people. But you're saying that happens every day.
Well, and my husband helped save my life numerous times with an EpiPen and calling 911 because I've almost died numerous times from anaphylaxis. So when you ask that question, you got somebody in this meeting right now who is dependent on people knowing what to do in a crisis situation.
There you go. Shout out to the medical field. Thank you, U.S. Army, for bringing me a wife 43 years ago at Irwin Army Hospital. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, Brian Kinzie, you are HR expert. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning. My name is Brian Kinzie. My company is Tinker HR. We provide fractional HR support to small businesses and nonprofits. Anything from helping them put together their first handbook to help with recruitment, retention, compliance, sticky employee situations, HR strategy, all those things that HR departments do for big companies, we do on a fractional basis for smaller organizations.
All righty, HR. I'm learning HR woven into the fabric of the organization. So we're going to take some of the boogeyman factor away from going to the office of HR. All right, Tiffany Greene, the time is upon us, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Okay, so there's a lot of discussion on LinkedIn about some new HR regulations. So I've already prepped Brian that I thought we should talk about those today. So Brian, if you'd like to take the floor with those new federal regulations.
Sure, and John, feel free to drop in with your legal on this as well. So John's like, nope.
I think we just made it clear this was an HR discussion.
Hey, this
Okay,
sounds scary.
All right, actually, this was one of those fun weeks where we got two different rules issued by the government in the same day, literally. First one, minimum salary threshold for salaried individuals. As of July 1, it is going to go up to $43,888 per year. And then on January 1st, next year, but just a few months away really, it'll go up to $58,656 per year. That means that if you are not paying that amount, and it's a legitimately exempt level employee, you'll have to pay them for their overtime. That's the simplest way of putting it. So this is a very significant increase. I think the final one for January 1 is about 60% increase over where we're at today. So if you are an organization that has people who are classed as salaried, now is a really good time to, number one, make sure they're classified correctly and they really are a salaried employee. And then number two, have a plan in place for how you are going to address this. Now, I will throw in the caveat. This, of course, is being challenged in courts. There's all sorts of lawsuits going on. That's what John can talk about, not me. But, so, this is not set in stone yet, but businesses should have a plan in place for how they're going to address it. And there's several things you can do. Number one, you can simply put the person over to being non-exempt, and then they'll be eligible for overtime. You could put them to salary non-exempt, so they continue to get their base salary, but then if they work overtime, they get paid for the overtime. Or you can bump their pay up if they're below that cutoff to that amount. What the right answer for that is dependent on your organization and your financial situation and what you can afford and all those types of factors. But it's definitely something that organizations need to be aware of right now. The second thing that happened was the FTC, John, Federal Trade Commission? Doesn't matter. Another government agency.
The non-compete. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't really matter. If the government tells you have to do it, it doesn't really matter what agency it is it's telling you. They essentially, to make it really simple, they pretty much banned non-competes. So, depending on your point of view, this is horrible or wonderful. So sort of a glass half full sort of situation. My general opinion on it is, if the only thing keeping an employee working for me is a non-compete agreement, that's not exactly the most motivated employee in the world. So I'm not too concerned about this. Really easy for me to say someone without intellectual property concerns and things like that. Now, within the tech industry, this is a huge deal. For other industries, frankly, I don't think it's as much of a deal, but it is important. A lot of companies do try to put non-competes in place. Virginia already put some laws a couple of years ago that made it a lot harder to enforce non-competes for a lot of people. So the main thing to me, yes, there is threat of losing people out the door to go work for competitors, but as an employer, it's also potentially an opportunity for you to go and recruit some people to your organization that you wouldn't have been able to touch previously. So, depends on your point of view. So some people see this as bad, some people see this as an opportunity. So, and for workers who are wanting to have better mobility between organizations, this is fantastic. So, again, this is getting challenged in court. That's already been filed. I think the I think the Chamber of Commerce for the U.S. like had a lawsuit in place like within like an hour of when the announcement was made. So this is going really quickly. So again, nothing's set in stone on this yet, but certainly something to be aware of. So yeah.
So is that for employees or is it for subcontracting agreements as well?
Good question. I'll defer to counsel on that. From my understanding would be this is for employees, but I could be completely wrong about that. So the I mean, the other thing to point out with this isn't like other things they've had in place for non-competes in the past. Like people who were on old non-competes were grandfathered in, and those were still in place. This eradicates any old non-compete agreement. And you have to notify your employees and former employees that might have been covered under a non-compete that they're no longer covered by it. So it's a big deal. John, I don't know if you can answer about
John?
the subcontractors or not. So
Yeah, I don't think you can put a non-compete clause in a subcontracting agreement.
Again, absolutely. Non-solicitation, non-competes are viable currently.
Well,
in our industry, they're almost standard practice.
They may be, so non-solicitation is something different. If you get audited, anyone's going to almost certainly look at a non-compete in a contractor agreement and automatically use that to declare that person an employee.
yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing. Non-solicitation, by the way, is still okay.
Yeah.
You can still have non-solicitation in place. You can still have confidentiality in place.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to put a non-compete in on an independent contractor, though, I agree with counsel down here. At least he's down here on my screen. That sounds a heck of a lot like an employee to me. So
let's clarify this. Let's clarify this because Stacie, this might help clarify your question. How would this impact a salesperson? How does this ruling impact a salesperson?
Right. Because in small business, and what I've heard from other podcasts and things of that nature around this topic this week was, and there's an echo somewhere, but the small business, the reason it's being challenged is for small businesses, if I hire someone and they come in, I hire Tim, right? He works for me. And I invest in him and I teach him what we're doing. There's nothing to protect my business from him going out and replicating that exact same model. Even a non-disclosure, none of that, because the work being done, unless he were to take some of my copyrighted or, trademarked stuff, is kind of a standard practice. So the non-solicitation would say you can't go and solicit as a new business owner my clients. But even as an employee and as a subcontractor for other consulting companies, we had non-competes where we could not go in. If I went and took a job for another consulting firm, they can't place me in the same client that I just came out of. I don't know how on the legal side of it is, but that's the way that the business has worked, and it helps to protect the business you've built. And the sales, my ex-husband being a salesperson, same way. If he wants to leave and go work for a competitor, he's already made those relationships. And we talked about the importance of relationships, with Mike, that a client can very quickly go follow a salesperson as opposed to stay with a company for a product line. So I know that's a lot of discussion out on the web right now, is where the lines are, and it's probably why it's in litigation.
So really quickly,
where's the protection for the small business?
This is the Empower Hour. Topics like this are why we do this every month, because this is important. We bring up something. Non-competes are essential in salespeople. That's what we understand that to be. That I can't walk out of company A and the next day I'm operating in company B, because if you're decent, the clients may go with you or at least listen to you. It really opens up a real can of worms, because all of a sudden counselor, that we're saying, I might have to take a non-compete to get this job. Do you think that when all this shakes out, do you think that that is going to be legal, that says for you to take this job, you're going to have to sign this non-compete?
No, I don't think anybody would be able to make you sign a non-compete going forward.
Oh,
That's in essence what they're trying to do. And from a practical standpoint, even before this, companies would have had a difficult time enforcing any non-compete, even if they had it in writing. So for most small businesses, in essence, non-competes have been dead for a while.
nobody told the salespeople.
They wouldn't have been able to
Or
enforce
the
them
consultants.
if they tried to.
Nobody took, there was a meeting and we weren't invited to say that that's because that was the thing. You cannot leave and go around the corner to a competitor and start up again, that they will sue you until the cows come home.
Well, that's what they say. In theory, that's not how it works, though, because they can sue you and you will easily get that case dismissed.
The problem is that employers aren't necessarily going after the suit. They're just using it to strong arm employees. Because I know people who've had to leave their profession because their previous employer made their life a problem, both financially and not quite legally, because as you said, they don't have a legal leg to stand on, but they made that employee's life really difficult and they had to leave their profession. So there may not be a legal leg to stand on, but that employer is strong arming what they can.
And this is one of the reasons that they're pushing forward these regulations to remove the non-competes, is because of people who are frankly behaving badly. I mean,
Yes.
the classic example that people point to was the sandwich franchise in the Midwest that had all of their employees sign off on a non-compete that they couldn't go work for another company that made sandwiches for 2 years after they left. You've got to be kidding me. Like, really? Like, putting the sandwich together is that proprietary that I can't go work at my local Wendy's after having left? No, I think it was I'm not going to say the name of the company because I might get wrong and get myself sued. But but in any case, that's like was sort of the one that everyone points to is what really kind of got the ball rolling on it. It's like whenever the government comes out with a new rule, it's typically because someone somewhere was behaving badly.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of instances where companies did exactly what Kristen was talking about, with preventing the person from actually performing their profession, which no non-compete allows you to do that under current laws even. So, but you're right, lots of companies behaving badly.
Okay, so here's the question, and it falls along the lines of collusion in baseball, which says, I'm going to go around the court. I poached, maybe the person came willingly. I left you this month for a better opportunity and deal. What's not to say that I'm going to leave the next place because a better deal came along? What kind of comfort do you have in our relationship because I chased a better deal today? 6 months down the road, there's another one comes along. So in reality, we don't all have to get together, but we have an understanding that there's, I don't even want to put it this way, but there's no honor among thieves. But what do we do from the business owner standpoint? You just left my competitor to come to me. What happens when someone else offers you more money and you're taking my trade secrets over to them?
I want to keep the sports analogy going. We're all in the transfer portal now. Okay? So we can go wherever. We're all free agents. We can go wherever we want to go to work. Now, trade secrets, again, that can fall under confidentiality. That's a different thing. You can still have confidentiality agreements in place. Those are enforceable. So you can't be taking your company's secrets with you and giving them away to the new company. That's still, you can still have things in place to stop that. But, the hey, you can't go work anywhere else for 2 years after you leave our company, that's what's getting knocked out. So, and again, if the only, I firmly believe this, if the only thing keeping a person working for me is the fact that I have a non-compete in place, that's strong arming them into working for me, that sounds like a really unmotivated, non-empowered employee to me. I don't want them working for me because they feel like they have to. That's not healthy for anybody involved in the situation. So now, is this going to cause some problems for some companies? Absolutely. Is it going to provide some opportunities for other companies? Yeah, it is. So it's going to make it more important for you to treat your employees well and to take good care of them so they want to work for you. You're going to have to pay competitive wages because otherwise they're going to be a whole lot freer to go work for somebody else. And if you're a company that's aggressive about these things, you're going to be able to attract top talent to come work for you and stay with you because you're not going to have the non-competes in place anymore, preventing people to come work for your organization. So, again, it's going to hurt some companies. Other companies, this is going to benefit. And I think that for the employees overall, it's hard to argue this isn't going to be beneficial for employees. I mean, it's going to be pretty beneficial for employees. So I see both sides of the argument. I understand why companies are concerned about this. Having said that, okay, everyone's playing under the same rule book. That's fine. It'll be all right. It's just makes it a more competitive environment.
I also think if we're talking about Virginia specifically, most small businesses haven't had a concern about non-competes for several years because they got rid of it for low-wage employees, but that's like $70,000 or something. So I think that a lot of the original or initial concern has been there's confusion about non-solicitations and non-competes, and people think that this is the end of all the non-solicitations gone, non-competes gone, and that there's confusion and concern about that. And but in reality, with a lot of Virginia small businesses, this is probably nothing that impacts anything that they do.
There you go. This is the Empower Hour. Tiffany Greene is here. While Brian Kinzie was talking about all that feel-good mumbo-jumbo stuff, Tiffany Greene is shaking her head like, yes, this is a purpose-driven, aligned company. Will it be able to attract and retain talent? Tiffany, the floor is yours, ma'am. Have at it.
I think you just summed it up really well. I think we get nervous, and you were talking about, well, what happens if this employee is just jumping from opportunity to opportunity for a higher salary? And I know a lot of business owners will be looking, well, that's not fair. What kind of person is that? Well, first of all, when you're going through the hiring phase and you're trying to find purpose alignment, meaning is that employee aligned with the purpose that we have in this organization? Maybe that wasn't the right hire to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. And then two, sometimes I'm going to say something like sometimes it's like we say in our personal lives, sometimes people come into our lives for a season. They're not supposed to be there forever. So that's okay too, to let people go and grow somewhere else. That doesn't necessarily mean that their time with you was not important or that you were a bad employer. It's just time for them to move on. So I think when we look at it from the broader perspective and focus on purpose and what we want for our people and how we want to empower people, I think if we focus on that, this becomes less alarming. But I do have another question for Brian, and I apologize. Actually, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. It's one of those moments. So what are your thoughts on the increase of salaries and this requirement that's coming up? How do you think that's going to impact most employers? What do you think most of them are going to do? Do you think they're going to reclassify? How do you think this is going to impact the small business owner for the most part?
I think most small business owners are paying people, well, first of all, go back one step. And this is just my opinion, this salary floor was really, really low for a really, really, really long time without any adjustment. So this is frankly doing a really fast catch up to what should have been happening over time anyway. Having said that, this is a huge increase for a small company to absorb if they tried to just adjust the salary. So shame on us for not having adjusted this faster. Shame on us for trying to adjust it overnight now. So kind of handled badly on both ends, frankly. So yay. So now for small businesses, I really think most companies are paying below that new number, it's because they can't afford to pay more than that. They're going to have to basically reclass the employees, in my opinion, for the most part. I think that where the companies are really going to have trouble with it are the ones that have employees that they're not paying a whole lot, that they've classified as salary, and they're also working them a ton of overtime. Now, that's probably a bad practice to begin with. That's not cool, you know. That's usually not a good way to have a good, happy, functioning workplace. But that's going to be the people that are hurt the most. The people that are really working those salaried employees a ton of hours and paying them as little as they possibly can. And they're going to have to readjust some of their business model. They're either going to have to hire more people, so they're not having to work as many hours, so you don't have the overtime expense, or they're going to have to raise their prices to cover the increase that they're going to have to do for their employees.
Well, that's the challenge, is the price.
Yep.
Because
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say we do have a comment on Facebook. One of our viewers from Indiana said, distance can be an issue and changes in cohabitation are reasons why changing jobs often occur. So he's implying it's not always salary. So we got that comment from him.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. It's actually salaries never typically why people leave a job. They usually leave because they're manager.
Sorry, Stacie.
no, one of the elements of this is a portion of the work my company does is for the government, and the state government here in Virginia uses a third-party contractor for some of the work that they do, and they set base hourly rates. With this increase, especially at the increase of 2025, right? That's another 15,000. That's $5 an hour. If those types of rates don't increase, then it's becoming difficult for small businesses to even compete to service the government agencies. And those rates are not renegotiated, but every 3 to 5 years. And so it is, with this coming into play, and you're looking at your ability to make a profit, you may lose work because you can't bill enough in order to deal with this particular pay increase, because this has people at 43,000. That's $22 an hour, basically. And then at 58, you're at $28 an hour. It seems reasonable when you think about a living wage because of the inflation of goods. But now, one of the other things I was hearing and being educated on is there's a difference between the inflation of goods and the inflation of wages. And our wage inflation had been going very slowly, and our cost of goods have been coming up. Now they're they're swinging the wages so high that it's creating an imbalance for the businesses, forcing the businesses to raise the price of goods, because their labor is built into that pricing structure. So that'll be interesting to see. We the contracts that I'm under are coming up for review, and I'm even the reason I'm even looking at this, and if there's other companies out there that are on government do government contracts, these nonprofits, etc. You have to, if that contract, those rates are only going to be set for every 3 to 5 years, you have to project what's going to happen in 5 years, how much, and now that's going to make a big swing, and the state governments are going to start to kind of have sticker shock because they're used to paying certain amounts. And I've even seen it in some of the agency that I'm working in. I've heard they'll put it out, a request out for bid, but the bids that come back in are way higher. And the part of that is because people are having to adjust for all these wage increases that are happening. Plus, they're having to adjust for the cost of goods, that they have to give their people enough money extra money to live, right? So I think it's a compounding factor that's going to be a challenge, especially in the near future, at least in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you know, the way that type of work runs. But
anybody that entered into a long-term contract for performing services, you know, this is, you know, you entered that contract with a certain assumption as to what your labor costs were going to be.
mm-hmm.
And this could potentially throw that completely out of whack. So that's,
well, and it could increase the amount of freelancers, because freelancers don't fall under this because they're not employees.
Yep.
So we all, that's where we get into this big circle of webs with, are you an employee? Are you an independent contractor? You know, do you have a non-compete? Do you have a non-solicitation? You know, what's your wage? What's your...
There you
Welcome
go,
to the
ladies and gentlemen.
circus.
The Empower Hour. We're here. We got John Rabil, Kristen, Brian, Stacie. Tiffany Greene is the ringmaster for all this right here. What we're talking about today is we have some really good topics. The HR portion, when you start looking about how that affects business, sometimes it would make you think that there's going to be even more shenanigans that are going to be played. And a lot of times it seems like the employee is the loser when it comes up. Like you said, I would know that most salespeople that I know would have thought that they would have sued you into oblivion if you went to a competitor. And if they didn't, they'd ruin your reputation so that the next person wouldn't hire you. So that's what it is. But we're with Tiffany Greene talking about purpose-driven organizations. That is a plus and a positive. So Kristen, really quickly, talk about what that means in your field to have an employer who is looking out for the welfare of their people. Like shout out to my friends over at Fahrenheit Advisors. They're out there, Rich and Keith, they're out there really making a difference. They're always talking about the American Heart, supporting American Heart and the hands-only CPR. So let's talk about business leaders who are driven like that.
Yeah. I think this is an important conversation, and sort of the takeaway I'm hearing is that really the employee is being brought forward. These are benefits to the individual employee. And we can hope that this word gets out and spreads, and that employers do the right thing and share this information with their employees. In our particular industry, there is great conversation about whether you are an employee or a 1099 contractor. John has talked about that a number of times, and that's just not information that's shared. I had a conversation this week with a person in our industry who is listed as an exempt employee without meeting the criteria of exempt, simply because they didn't want to bother with the overtime. They didn't want to bother with time tracking. They just don't want to bother. Being an hourly employee is extra paperwork. And so the employer just said, you're exempt, go forth and do great things, and here's your salary. And so we had a great conversation this week that like that's not legal, and now is going to really create that reclassification. And then obviously the non-compete. We have a host of instructors who have had to leave instructing because they thought that their non-compete was valid, and that if they left one training facility, they could not go and work for another one for 2 years. And so that instructor then had to leave their profession and find something else to do until they decided whether they wanted to go back or not. So I feel like these are really good moves. They protect the employee and sort of fight back at the employer that isn't willing to take care of their own. This isn't going to hurt an employer that wants to do the right thing and is doing the right thing. This is an incredible accountability to make sure that those who are business owners are doing the right thing for everyone involved.
And I'd like to say, Mike, that we have another comment, and I think it's really important because the first comment on Facebook from our friend on Facebook, Brian is particularly going to like. He says, agreed with Brian. Let's bask in that for a moment, Brian. Agreed with Brian. I left an hourly job in Columbus, Indiana, because there was no raises going on for 3 years I was there. Angry, yes. Also, engagement and living closer to my significant other played a big issue. I would like to give you a moment, Brian, on that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to that. No raise for 3 years. Speak to that, HR professional.
Let's just say that in a competitive hiring environment, that's really hard to pull off because people are willing to pay for talent. And more than likely, you're going to be able to find someone who will give you a increase to go work for them. It's actually, this is the sad truth is you can almost always make more money by leaving your organization than by staying with it. You know, if on average, when you go from one company to go work for another company, most of the time you get roughly a 10% increase. This is huge averages here, but for the most part, you can expect about a 10% increase just to move from one company or to another. How often do you get a 10% annual increase from your organization? Never happens. Most companies budget somewhere before inflation 2-3%. Now companies are trying to do 4 or 5%. But it's still always more lucrative, frankly, to go work for somewhere else. And I know plenty of professionals who have gone, they've left their old organization to go work somewhere else, and then come back to their old organization like after a year or two, and 20% higher than when they left. So leaving the organization was definitely the right move for them financially. You know, if you're able as an employer to do the increases for your internal staff, that is always going to be beneficial for you. If you're interested in retaining your talent, then you need to at least be keeping up with inflation, if nothing else. You don't want people losing money by working for you. That's going to be really hard. Now, I'll say right now, there's really low unemployment, really competitive job market. Everything's pretty employee friendly at the moment from that standpoint. So companies are having to be competitive. Trying to not give a raise for 3 years, I'm not going to say no company is doing that now, but I'm sure there are companies out there doing that. That's a really hard place to be in as a company, is to not be giving any type of raise. Now, having said that, when employment is like, unemployment's really high, and there's not many jobs out there, and it's a really competitive environment, can companies get away with not doing increases? Yes. And do they act that way at that point in time? Absolutely, because they're trying to control their costs, make more profit, and if they can if they're not under that pressure to increase salaries, they won't do it. Now, I would say good employers are going to try to, but again, it depends on what your budget situation is, where you are at as a company. You know, you might not be able to provide increases necessarily. And there's some good organizations out there that are tied up financially, they simply can't do it. In which case, hopefully you're treating your employees well and giving them opportunities to work where they can increase their skills and grow and things like that. And they feel like what they're doing is aligned to the purpose, especially in the nonprofit world where there's not a whole lot of money to go around. Not that nonprofits are different from for-profit when there comes to no money going around, but it's still something that you need to be cognizant of. If what your pay, for lack of a better way, what your pay strategy is going to be. Are you going to be leading the market? Are you going to be trailing the market? Are you going to be trying to hit the median on pay? And if you're going to be trailing the market, then what are you going to be doing? Is it just high turnover positions where it doesn't matter, you can just turn people successfully? Or are you going to just treat people so well that they're okay getting paid less? Or is the work you're doing so meaningful that they're okay with making less working for you? There's a whole bunch of different factors in there. It's never a simple solution. If it was, it would be easy. So
Brian, I got one more question for you because we got to get to Mike King's homework. I thought Mike pulled the plug so he didn't have to do his homework. I was like, oh my, that was convenient. But Mike, you're on mute.
That's probably good. I think we were about to hear a whole bunch of excuses for Mike is what we were about to hear. So.
The computer went off. I was getting ready to say thank you for coming. We've run out of time, ladies and gentlemen. But I feared for my life with Tiffany Greene. All righty. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Empower Hour. The time is running short. So I would guess that this is the time where I have to produce. So, Tiffany Greene, explain to our viewers and listeners what was supposed to happen today, ma'am.
You were supposed to do your homework to determine what is your overall purpose for your business. Meaning, are you in a space of subleasing airtime? Are you in the space of being an influencer? Are you in the space of being a collaborator? What is your primary purpose for Mike King on the Mic with Mike on ESPN Richmond? What is your purpose? What are you trying to do, Mike?
Ladies and gentlemen, so I'd just like to thank you guys for tuning in right now. This is the moment of truth. I have been dreading this for a while. The pressure has been put on me, but I've been working with Stacie Briley Goodman, and I have been doing some work there. The idea of this is that I'm more of a collaborator than the influencer part. I love to open the doors for friends and show them opportunities. And I can sort of drift back. We're using the power of the radio and the media to get that done. But with that comes I'm not on the total growth phase as far as building the business and scaling it up. No, not really. This is pretty good right now, but I have to put some people in place. Most people who know me know that there could, some systems and processes could be put in place to make this thing run smoother. Anyone who's come to the studio understands that in the middle of a conversation, I get up, tell you to keep talking, and I go to let the next person in. I'm not sure that happens at any other media company, but that's what we do here. It's not normal. So one of the things that I've gone to, Stacie Briley Goodman, thank you. I sent her an email of my thoughts, and I got a book back for additional. I thought I was pretty comprehensive, ladies and gentlemen. But clearly, when Stacie and Tim saw that, they knew that I needed some additional work. And the questions came back. So the idea of it now, what I do is I record on 3 different days, people are in the studio. I'm shifting that to recording for my partners 1 day a week. And that allows for the other interviews of community people, other business people to happen on the additional 2 days. So that's where the transformation is. And then I have a ton of homework with Stacie and Origamic about what am I doing. But Tiffany Greene, it is the influencer part is pretty cool because then I can open doors for friends. There is a benefit in that. We're speaking with John and talking about that. Is there are a lot of people who don't have conversations without an NDA. So if I introduce you to a person and you guys strike up a deal, maybe a person wants a finder's fee or something like that. I don't operate like that. I introduce you. If you guys strike up and make a deal, fine. God bless you. Keep it moving. The only thing I say is if you know something and a person has a question, the only thing should be like, yo, did you talk to Mike? Because he may know the person who can make this thing happen for you. We can change the course of people's lives. Tiffany Greene, that is my purpose alignment statement, and that is submitted to the Princess of Purpose.
So I'm going to say, what's coming, right?
Oh,
I think
Lord.
you did a good job. You did homework, but why? Why do you want to do that?
It is, okay, so the cool part is when you see a person, my mom would always say, we didn't all come here on the same day. We all aren't leaving. Well, I mean, at some point, maybe we might all leave at the same time, but, typically right now, we all don't leave at the same time. When you can open the door for someone to have an impact on their life, just like Tiffany, you could be out and it's a random Wednesday and you'll have a conversation and it just says something. You say something to a person. You changed the course of that person's life that day. It's something you said and you didn't even think about it. It was just like a random thought or you just said a comment and the person looked up and said, wow, I've been waiting to meet that person to tell me that thing. You don't have to figure everything out. It's not what, it's who. Somebody's been down that road. When we were sitting yesterday, Tim Pisani said there's 3 things as far as making people happy. And he goes down, I'm like, wow. Until somebody says it to you in a way that you get it, we don't get it. We only know what we know. So when I walk into a room or I invite somebody in and I tell them, you need to meet that person right there. And I walk them over there, and people know me now. So when people they might start to run. But the one part is I'm going to introduce you to my friend because you can help them or they can help you or you guys can collaborate. And then I can go home and be home at 4 o'clock today. And then I don't have to stay at a whole bunch of events the whole time. I can just show up and take a couple pictures and be gone.
So why do you want to help people collaborate though? Like, what is your mission of doing that?
I was an only kid for a long time. I'd like being around my friends. I don't operate in circles where people I don't know. That's where I wear my name on everything. But when I'm with my friends, it's the Joker Mike, the fun guy. But when other people see me, they just think I'm just like the weird guy, because I'm not talking to people that I don't know. That's where I wear my name on everything. That way you know who I am and I don't have to tell you because that's awkward.
So what do you want people to say about Mike King when Mike King is not in the room? Man, you really need to get to know Mike King because fill in the blank.
Because he can help you. He knows the person who can help you. I know a little bit about a lot of things because I was always curious. Like, how does that thing work? I'm not a technical person. I'm not the deep thinker trying to figure out, the origins of man. No, I'm pretty much, okay, let's take this. How can we get from one day to the next day? In the military, there's a thing that we kind of look at, and it's on a team. So say the team is Bravo team, and Bravo 1 is the leader. And there are 10 guys on a team. Bravo 1's job is the entire team to take care of the team. Bravo 3 through 10 job is to listen to what was told. Bravo 2's job is to take care of Bravo 1 because he can't see what's going on because he can't watch his back or figure out what's happening with him because his job is to take care of the whole team. So for anybody who operates in my world, that's what we do. People come in and who can we introduce you to help you get there where you want to be? I can do it quietly. It doesn't have to be with a whole bunch of fuss and rigmarole and all that. I can go, and then I always want to leave before people kick me out.
How does the radio facilitate the collaboration?
It's the power. The media, you can tell people who you are using the power of the media. If I go to any town within 2 or 3 days, I know who the main players are. I know who the car dealers are. I know who the lawyers are. I know who the HVAC people are. They're the ones on TV advertising. They're the ones on the radio. They're out there telling who you are and what you do. If you're a thought leader, you don't need to keep it to yourself. You need to tell people what you do because the internet and media has shrunk the world. When I was in 6th grade, we moved 20 miles outside of Philadelphia. I had always gone to school in the suburbs. I went to private school. There was a big difference between those kids and that 20 miles. It was like a lifetime. Those kids were just, whoa. They didn't know what they didn't know because their world was North Wales, Pennsylvania. Small town, 1 stoplight. Philadelphia was just some big city down the road that everybody was scared to go to. Now everybody knows the same thing. Everybody has access to the same thing. What you do with it is what you do. So that's the power of the media, that everyone has a podcast. But when you walk in and say, oh, that person's a radio talk show host. And it's crazy because I'm on ESPN, not talking about sports. We're talking any and everything. Shout out to our friend Carol out there when we did the Down Syndrome Day. That was Matt DiNardo sees me now and he says, Mike, that's a madhouse that you guys are running over there. Because we give a platform to people sometimes who don't get a platform. And then I run into people like Tiffany's talk. I knew the mumbo jumbo kumbaya stuff was out there. Tiffany Greene put a label and a name on it. That's it. She's a princess of purpose, and I could be the king of kumbaya. That's what my wife calls. Yeah, she says that, and I'm like, yes, that's me. We all can get along. There is enough for everybody, but we got to put some processes in place. And then we run into somebody like Stacie, who's like, okay, put this in there. You can be more effective and more efficient by putting some processes in place instead of shooting from the hip every time. So that's what we're doing now. So that's my homework. See, I'm prepared.
You are
Good.
prepared. Yay,
Yankee.
Mike. Yay, Mike. Rory did not, in fact, eat your homework, so I'm very proud of you and her for not eating your homework. 2, you have 2 more questions for next.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
What do you want your legacy to be? And what's your exit strategy?
Oh, I've asked that too.
Yes. The
Succession
exit way-
planning.
For next time or at the end.
Ladies and gentlemen,
We'll
Tiffany
put that on
Greene.
his homework list.
She is the killjoy lady right there. I was just getting ready to drop these pearls of wisdom. I've been dying to say what that was, but because of the constraints of the, the authority figure here, I can't put it all out there. I wanted to share it with you, ladies and gentlemen, but the powers that be. I'm just a little working guy from Philly. The authority figure said, the man has a foot on my neck. It just happens to be a woman from
It's just a
Canada.
perfect stop the king of Kumbaya.
It's like that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Empower Hour. We'd like to thank Tiffany Joy Greene for putting this together. Our guests who are out there, we'd like to thank you. Thank you. We're back again in June with this right here. We bring the experts together to answer the questions that you may have.
That's
And
right.
Mike's pearls of wisdom. Stay tuned.
That's right.
I know. I hope I can hold on to them till June. It is a struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to go. Take care. Thanks now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.